Thank you for joining us today for the Conform to Christ podcast, where we seek to engage the mind, affect the heart, and call people to follow Christ. Jay Jones, and I'm here with George Mays for Text Driven Tuesday. And we're back in Genesis for the next 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
5 weeks. Next 5 weeks, we're in Genesis and picking up where we left off.
Yep.
Grab your Bible, turn to Genesis chapter 10. How's it going?
It's going well.
Got your little root beer? Got your notes spread out? You're ready to rock?
Yep.
All right.
I'm ready.
You ready to go?
I'm not ready to read these names again. That was actually you never know what's going to go through your brain while you're standing up at the pulpit.
Yeah.
As I was reading, I was thinking to myself, oh no, I got to read these again tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's very distracting. It's very distracting when you're standing in front of the congregation and your mind is thinking about
Did you practice?
what you have to do. I did.
Practice out loud?
There have, this isn't the first genealogy, obviously. And I realized as I was studying for this one that in the past I've read the passage so much internally,
Mm-hmm.
and then I get up to the pulpit, I'm like,
Oh,
whoops.
yeah.
I never read it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how this goes. So when I was reading this one, it hit me. I was like, I need to practice reading this out loud. It's one thing to read it in your head. It's another thing to actually try to pronounce it. So yeah, I had to practice reading it out loud.
Yeah. It's pretty much all
it's
names.
all names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, how shall we get going? Shall we have you read it? And then, or maybe we'll do it this way. Bring us up to speed in 5 minutes, 1 through 9,
Okay.
and then read 10.
Okay.
I think that would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is Sunday school stuff, right? Like these are stories that everyone has. I mean, especially if you grew up in church, like you know these stories, right?
But more and more people now, and even
Are
we
not.
have at our church,
Mhm.
even our new Christians that didn't grow up in church.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even when you're evangelizing people, you have to start with who is God, because when you say God, who knows what people are thinking,
Mm-hmm.
right? All right. So Genesis 1 through 9. Genesis 1 begins with, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So the sovereign triune God, he speaks the universe into existence, everything visible and invisible. He creates everything by his word. And he makes everything very good. And into this, so that's chapter 1. It's big picture of God creating everything. Chapter 2, zoom in and focuses on a special place. So God, in this very good creation, he plants a garden temple in Eden. And into that garden temple, he puts his image bearers. They're made in his image. They're meant to reflect his goodness. They are blessed to be fruitful and multiply. They're supposed to fill the earth with more and more image bearers until the entire earth is a garden temple filled with image bearers who glorify God. But then you get to chapter 3. These image bearers, instead of obeying God, believing God, following his word, and imaging him, they are deceived by the serpent into pursuing their own glory. And so as they eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they're wanting to become like God, determining for themselves what's good and evil. And they fall into lives of sin and misery, ultimately leading to death. The whole world falls into chaos. But in the midst of the condemnation that Adam brings into the world, God promises in Genesis 3:15 that a Redeemer is coming. And so the seed of the woman will crush the head of the seed of the serpent, and he will restore God's very good world back to his design. Chapter 4 follows that conflict between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. So Cain murders his brother Abel. The seed of the serpent actually crushes the head of the seed of the woman. And the rest of chapter 4 is following the seed of Cain as it gets progressively worse and worse and worse till we get to Lamech, who has 2 wives and sings a song about killing a man.
Yeah.
Chapter 5 is following Seth's line. Seth replaces Abel. He's the godly line. He's the seed of the woman. So we're following his line. And so we have guys like Methuselah, Enoch, another Lamech, and Noah. And so we get to the line of Noah at the end of chapter 5. And he's named Noah because his father says, this one will give us relief. This one will give us rest. Chapter 6 opens with sons of God, daughters of men, the Nephilim. The world is filled with violence and so much wickedness that God determines to destroy the entire earth with a flood. But before he destroys the world with a flood, he chooses by his own grace to save one man and his family, Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, their 3 wives. 8 people go into the ark, and there's the flood judgment in chapter 7 and 8. They come out of the ark into quote unquote new creation. Noah and his wife are a new Adam and Eve. They're blessed to be fruitful and multiply, but and God blesses them with the rainbow, the rainbow sign of the Noahic covenant that God will never flood the entire earth again. And but by the end of chapter 9, we see that Noah, just like the first Adam, he's still infected with sin, and so he gets drunk on fruit, lays naked. His youngest son, Ham, sees him and mocks him. And when Noah wakes up, he curses Ham, or rather Canaan, Ham's youngest son, and blesses Shem and Japheth, repeating Genesis 3 over again. And we're in a still fallen world. It's a new world, but it's still fallen. So that blessing to Shem is still anticipating someone to come in the future.
Yeah.
And here we are. Here we are in chapter 10.
Chapter 10 is often called the Table of Nations. It's the 4th Toledot.
Yeah. These are the generations of.
Yeah, you can see that in your English Bible. These are the generations of. And so now we're going to see 4 universal truths that are found in the Table of Nations. So it's time. I know you've been.
Let me take one more drink of root beer.
It's time to read it.
All right, let's do it.
All righty.
Genesis chapter 10. Read the whole chapter. All right. These are the generations of the sons of Noah: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer: Ashkenaz, Rephath, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan: Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. From these the coastland peoples spread in their lands, each with his own language, by their clans in their nations. The sons of Ham: Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush: Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ra'amah, and Sabtika. The sons of Ra'amah: Sheba and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before Yahweh. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land he went into Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah, that is, the great city. Egypt fathered Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtuhim, Pathrusim, Casluhim, from whom the Philistines came, and Caphtorim. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Archites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zimrites, and the Hamathites. Afterward, the clans of the Canaanites dispersed, and the territory of the Canaanites extended from Sidon in the direction of Gerar as far as Gaza, and in the direction of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. To Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the elder brother of Japheth, children were born. The sons of Shem, Elam, Asher, Aparkshad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Parkshad fathered Shelah, and Shelah fathered Eber. To Eber were born 2 sons. The name of the one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan fathered Almodad, Sheleph, Hazar-Armaveth, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Diklah, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. The territory in which they lived extended from Misha in the direction of Sephar to the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. These are the clans of the sons of Noah according to their genealogies in their nations, and from these the nations spread abroad on the earth after the flood.
All right. So
Don't make me read that anymore, Jay.
a whole chapter.
You can read it next time.
Whole chapter, genealogies, names. You know, this is the type of thing that most people probably will go their whole life and never hear a sermon on. If you go to a topical type church, probably most of the topics are going to be from the New Testament with major Old Testament stories.
Have you ever heard a sermon on Genesis 10?
No.
Yeah, I hadn't either.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting in your intro, you said, in all of ancient literature, there's nothing like the Table of Nations. Can't find it.
Yeah. There are lists in ancient Sumerian, Babylonian, Egyptian, culture, but whenever they mention other nations, it's we conquered these people. It's not. This is where these people came from. There's no list of the origins of nations. Why are there other people around us? They're not really interested in that. Whenever they mention the other nations, it's always in relation to themselves, because the history of the world is centered on the Egyptians or the Babylonians or the Assyrians or the Sumerians. So it's interesting that as Moses is writing to the nation of Israel, coming out of Egypt in the wilderness wanderings, they're about to enter the land of Canaan. He's penning these words, and he's talking about here's where all the nations came from. They came from Noah and his 3 sons, and there's nothing like it in the rest of the Bible, and there's nothing like it in the rest of the ancient world.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
it's really interesting. Yeah. Hey, you have to ask why.
Yeah,
like why is this the case? Why is Moses interested in these other nations?
Yeah. And so I like how you like your outline. I like what you brought out of the text here. So these 4 universal truths are going to answer that question. Why is it here? So the first truth that we see is all ethnicities originate from one family. And it is interesting, right? Because you brought out what's being talked about here. And really, what's being talked about are not just nations. They are, how do we get these nations, but people and individuals.
Right.
It starts with 3 brothers. And you even had a little map to show. I don't know if you want to show the map.
Yeah, it's on here if we want to.
Yeah, so you can see the 3 main.
It's not a perfect map, but it's kind of clicked. It kind of ticked off all the boxes that I was looking for. There, I mean, you can just Google Table of Nations and you can pull up different maps. The ESV Study Bible has a pretty good map. I almost used that one, but this one was slightly better.
Yeah. So you can see on that map clearly the three brothers and their regions. Though there is some mixing of regions a little bit, but for the most part, and then you can see where their Noah's grandchildren went and how they formed into nations.
Yeah.
And you brought out Egypt, that Egypt is not just a nation, but a nation named after a person.
It seems that way. I mean, as you're reading it, you can get a little confused because it seems like we're supposed to read them as individuals. I mean, Japheth, the sons of Japheth, and then it names 5, 6, 7, 8 names, and you think, well, these should be individuals, right? But then you get to places like Ham's sons were Egypt and Canaan, and those are places that you are familiar with. And so and then further on, you get names that end with im or its. Those are plurals, and so it can be a little confusing. I think the best way to understand this is that these are supposed to be individuals from which these nations are named. And I think that's a pretty straightforward way to understand it. We've already seen this. I mean, back in chapter 4, Cain builds a city, names it after his son.
Yeah.
So it's both a city and an individual, right? You get to Genesis chapter 19. There's a little foreshadowing of Genesis 19 in this this really gross chapter. Lot's 2 sons, Ammon and Moab. And from them come the Ammonites and the Moabites. So individuals who father nations. And even in our own country, like we live in America. It's named after Amerigo Vespucci. He was Amerigo. We are Americans. So an individual, the country's named after him. Now a nation is named after him.
Yeah.
So that I think that's the best way to look at it.
Yeah. Hey, Pennsylvania is like that, right?
Yeah. Named after Penn.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all over the place. So I think it's really fascinating that places like Egypt are named after an individual who was named Mizraim is his name. So if you're using the New American Standard, Legacy Standard, it's going to say Mizraim. That's just the Hebrew word that's translated to Egypt.
Yeah.
So his name was either Mizraim or Egypt.
Yeah.
It's on the map too. It has that. It has Egypt in parentheses.
All right. Now talk about the distinction that maybe is helpful to not import our understanding of a nation into this.
Right. Yeah. When we hear that word nation, we're thinking of like organized governments with set borders, a leadership structure, maybe an army. Don't think of it. As you're reading this, don't think of these are set nation states. Those are more modern ideas. Think more of people groups, ethnicities.
Yeah.
So these are the people groups that scattered across the earth. The Egyptians do form a nation with borders, but when we're talking about this here in Genesis 10, we're thinking more of this is a particular ethnicity, a particular people group. So as they're scattering, they start to develop their own culture, their own language.
So the 3 main, what do they become like as they migrate and become different various peoples?
Right.
Like today that we can see.
Yeah.
In the world.
For example, Japheth. Japheth's descendants, if you look at the map, you can see that they're, let's see, can you see my little pointer? Okay.
Yeah.
Japheth's right here, like in Iraq, kind of Iran.
Yeah.
His people go to the north and to the west, up into Asia Minor, modern day Turkey, like Javan over here. It's probably the Ionians. It becomes later in the Old Testament just a catch-all for the Greek people. Tyrus is thought to be like the early people that formed Italy. And then further, Tarshish over here, there's a question mark next to it because some people think that it's maybe into Spain. Some think maybe it was more like Tarsus down in southern Asia Minor. So there's debate. There's debate over some of these. They're not sure every single one, but they go up into what we would call Europe. So Japheth's descendants would be what we would modern call Europeans.
Yeah. So how about Asians too? Is there a link there, Japheth?
Maybe
as they go east.
Moses doesn't. I mean, this goes into one of my other little sidebars that I said, this isn't covering all the nations.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, you can see on the map that Moses is not concerned with going east into India, Asia, China, all the Asian, Eastern Asian countries. He's not really concerned with that. I think there's a theological reason for that. We'll probably touch on it next week with Tower of Babel, but going east is always wicked.
Going away from the
Yeah,
garden.
because of where Eden was.
Yeah.
East is always wicked. That's not to say that people that live in East Asia are wicked, but any more than anyone else. But I think there's a theological reason why he's not really concerned with going too far east. But yeah, the people groups that go up into like the Caspian area, up into Asia Minor, and then further into Europe, different people groups.
Okay. So how about Ham's people?
They go, you can see they go west and south. Ham's name actually means hot. That may not, that may not be his name, right? It's a designated name for hot because his people go into more desert areas, right? So they go into Africa. So you got Egypt, right? Put is probably Libya. You've got Cush, that's down south, probably like around modern Ethiopia, somewhere around there. Some of these places we're not exactly sure. There's debate over like Ophir. Some people think that might be in India, but it's probably more likely that it's down in Africa, down into Saudi Arabia. And then, of course, the Canaanites over here that settle in the land of Canaan. So that's where they settle.
Okay.
And Moses is doing this with an eye towards Israel. So Japheth, his people are the people that Israel is going to have the least amount of contact in the Old Testament. Now, later on in the New Testament, they have more and more contact.
It's possible the Philistines emerged from them as sea people.
We're talking about ancient people that are still migrating. So you've got in verse, let's see, which verse is it? Now I can't find it. Verse 14. You've got from whom the Philistines came. The ESV has that in parentheses. I think that's right. It's kind of a sidebar because you see that the Philistines are coming from Egypt. So the individual Egypt has these children, and from his descendants come the Philistines. But there's debate over whether those are the same Philistines that we meet in 1st and 2nd Samuel. They could have either migrated up because Philistines are thought to be the sea people that come from maybe up here in Cyprus. But there's debate over it. The Philistines are kind of a enigmatic people. They're not really sure where they come from. I'm not going to chase that rabbit, Jay. There's belief that that some Philistine people might have actually made it over into like South America. But anyway, so they're not sure if the Philistines that are mentioned here are the same Philistines that we meet later. So they could be from Japheth, they could be from Ham. That's
interesting.
There's debate that they're not. So there's 70 nations listed here in chapter 10. The Philistines are not considered part of the list. They're kind of a here's where the Philistines came from, but there's kind of debate over it.
Okay, all right.
Because if you read through Exodus, as Israel crosses the Red Sea, God actually tells Moses, I'm going to lead them this direction lest they run into the Philistines and experience war and grow discouraged. But But the Philistines he's talking about seem more like these Philistines than the ones that we meet later on,
Okay. All right. Interesting.
because they're in a different area.
All right. Then Shem.
And Shem is his name literally means name, because he's going to be from whom those who call upon the name of Yahweh come. So Shem is a Shemite. The people are Shemites or Semites.
Yeah.
They're the Semitic people, and so they go into what we would call Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, right, and then some down into what we would call Saudi Arabia. The only thing I don't like about these maps is I'm a little yellow-green colorblind, and these maps keep wanting to use yellow and green, and I can't easily distinguish between these. And so down here, I don't know I can't really tell which ones are Shem and which ones are Ham. So hopefully people can distinguish those a little bit better. I showed you the ESV map, and it had a key, and for Ham, it was colored in as red, but then with Shem and Japheth, it was like just the border was colored, and I couldn't distinguish between the two. I was like, we can't use this map. There's going to be people like me that can't see what the difference is. But they're down here in the Middle East. Again, they are going to be interacting with the descendants of Ham. They're going to be kind of together.
Right.
What's interesting is with Shem's descendants, let's see, Asher, right here. I don't know if anyone can see me circling that right there. Asher, that's probably where Assyria comes from, the Assyrians.
Yeah.
One thing I don't like about this map is Aparkshad is not he's not labeled on here. His kids, Eber is mentioned, but Aparkshad isn't. He's probably down here under Nimrod, under the Euphrates River. And he's thought to maybe be where the Babylonians came from, the Babylonian people. So the Semitic people are they're pretty dispersed. They're a diverse people, but they're all interacting with each other. So.
And you mentioned that Eber's where we get the term for Hebrew.
Eber is considered to be the origin of the word Hebrew. Yeah. Wow. And that's, we're kind of jumping all over the place, but that's all right.
Which on the map, it was like where
Abram
was.
Yeah, he's up here, right up here. But again, remember, these are, they're nomadic people, so they're like, just because you see it on the map doesn't mean that this is the precise location. This is just kind of giving you a general idea. They don't know who everyone is. For example, over here in Asia Minor, this says Rodanim. If you look at Genesis 10, it says Dodanim. It's labeled here as Rodanim because in 1 Chronicles chapter 1, it says Dodanim. Or it says Rodanim. So Genesis 10 here, Dodanim. 1 Chronicles says Rodanim. If you go to the Septuagint, in both places, in Genesis 10 and 1 Chronicles, it says Rodanim. And so it's thought that Rodanim is probably the correct reading. If you remember your Hebrew, the R and the D look very similar.
Yeah.
Like there's just a slight difference.
Yeah.
So it'd be really easy for a scribe to mistake an R for a D.
Yeah.
And they're thought to be the descendants or the kingdom of Rhodes. Right. Yeah, but by Eber, he's considered to be the origin of Hebrew. That's why when you get to verse 21, it says to Shem also the father of all the children of Eber. Like there's an immediate zeroing on Eber.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
That's where the Hebrews come from.
Yeah.
So Eber has Peleg, and Peleg has the descendants that we'll read about in chapter 11 that lead us to the next section.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
That's interesting. I know that there, not everyone is as excited about looking at maps as I am. But
Yeah,
I think this is pretty interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff on this map.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, I didn't go through it because I didn't want it to become a lecture, but I have like a list of all the names and the nations that they think all these
That's cool.
people are.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right. So one big takeaway that you brought out is how ridiculous racism is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
If we're taking the Bible seriously, then all the people of the earth come from Noah and his 3 sons.
Yeah. 3 brothers.
Yeah, yeah. So 8 people go into the ark, 8 people come out. Peter reaffirms that. So if you're like, well, this could be, Israelite mythology or, a fable or something. This didn't actually happen. Or that the flood was localized. You have to consider First Peter, because Peter says that there were 8 people that survived the flood. He considers it a worldwide event where everyone's wiped out except for 8 people. So 8 people come out of the ark, and Shem, Ham, and Japheth and their 3 wives are they're where everyone comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 brothers. I should have used the illustration of my 3 sons. Like, look at my 3 sons. Embarrass them. Everyone's looking at them. They look alike. I mean, not exactly alike. They're not carbon copies, but if you look at them, you can tell they're related.
Yeah.
Well, that would have been like Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Right? The 3 brothers. They're not going to look wildly different. And if everyone comes from these 3 brothers, then racism is not just wicked, it's really stupid.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous because everyone is related.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'd say when we come to church, it's family reunion.
Yeah.
Because we are all related.
Mm-hmm.
So to have some kind of superiority over someone else because of their ethnicity is it's just really dumb.
Mm-hmm.
We're not looking at races here. Like, I use the illustration of fantasy novels. I like reading fantasy. You read Lord of the Rings, and there are different races. There's a race of men, race of elves, race of dwarves, hobbits, orcs. There's different races. They come from different origins. So a human and a dwarf aren't coming from the same source. That's not what we see here. Like, you can read fantasy novels and say there's different races, and there's often racism in fantasy novels. Like, people are humans are racist towards elves. Other way around. Elves are like the superior race, and they view everyone else as inferior. There can be some justification for that in fantasy novels because they come from different sources. But if everyone comes from Noah, then there really is no reason for racism, because we all spring up from one source, all from one family. And so no matter where you live on the earth, you may have different skin color, different culture, but there's no difference in your humanity. Like, biologically, you are the same.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good takeaway. Also, you brought out, we see the goodness of God in this, and also the providence of God in that. The earth is being repopulated,
right,
and quickly.
Yeah. I mean, if you follow the flood story, God wipes out everyone except for 8 people, and then when you read chapter 9, you have to ask, why didn't he wipe these people out too? They're also sinners. But they also are deserving of God's justice, but instead God shows them grace. He sovereignly chooses Noah out of humanity to save, and because of Noah's headship, Ham, Shem, and Japheth also are saved. But they're all sinners, and we should read Genesis chapter 10 in connection with the flood narrative and say, really, it's a wonder that there's any people at all.
Yeah.
We're going to look at Tower of Babel next week, mankind very quickly becomes exceedingly wicked again.
Mhm.
And the fact that there are nations at all should amaze us.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testimony to our sinfulness that we just casually live our lives and never think that we even exist is because God is being merciful to us
Mm.
and He's being good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? But we also see His providence. I took us to Acts chapter 17 because Paul says that when God set the borders, he's the one that established where people would live. The location, the time in which they live, is all established by God in order that the nations would seek after Him. And so when we look at this, when we see the different locations that the people groups have scattered to, we can look at it and think this is all random and by chance, and they just they wandered in this direction, and that's where they ended up. But if we take the Bible seriously, we have to see that every point on this map is there because that's where God wanted them to live.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that goes into our conclusions about racism. If God is the one who providentially puts people in that place at that time, in that ethnicity, that language, that family, who are we to feel superior to someone else?
Right.
Why should we feel pride over this? I didn't cause myself to be born in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the 20th century to the parents, I was born to.
Yeah.
Any more than someone who's born in sub-Sahara Africa in the 14th century chose to be born there.
Yeah.
So
Good reminder.
So we should always remember that our every step is orchestrated by God's decree.
Mm-hmm.
History itself is all played out because this is God's purpose.
Mm-hmm.
He is sovereign over the nations, and where they are, their distinct borders, the nations, their languages, their culture, all of it is because of God.
Yeah. Good. All right. So this is the first truth. All ethnicities originate from one family. Second truth we see is all men are self-serving kingdom builders. So fill us in here on how we get here. There's a big kind of there is an emphasis on a person we're going to talk about, but help us to see.
I know
the
you liked this
connection.
one, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Is this the one you're excited
Fun.
about? Yeah.
But it's linked to chapter 11,
But
but it kind of sets up.
Right.
It's like this is the sneak peek setup
Yeah.
for helping us understand chapter 11.
It's like the prologue. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even though we all come from one family, so where there is a unity to humanity, you also can very clearly see that we are very divided, not just by language and culture, but people just the hatred between people. We're just completely divided. Why? Well, we see it here in chapter 10, and it follows the repeated phrases of separated, divided, scattered that we see in chapter 9, 10, and 11. And like you said, we're supposed to be reading this together. Like there's a reason why we're going from chapter 1 and just going chapter by chapter, going through the book. You're supposed to be reading this together. So chapter 10, it's a new section, but it's kind of the macro picture that's leading us to chapter 11. And we already saw this in Genesis 1. Genesis 1, creation of everything. That's the big picture. Chapter 2, it's honing in on Eden. Chapter 10 is doing the same thing. This is the macro picture of all the nations. Chapter 11 is zooming in on one location, and it's giving the theological reason behind chapter 10. Like, why are the nations scattered according to their languages? Well, it's because of chapter 11, Tower of Babel. And then Tower of Babel is going to lead us into the story of Abram. So it's all interconnected. It's all leading us in one direction. So we're divided because of the Tower of Babel incident, which we'll talk about more next week.
Yeah.
All right. So we don't want to go into that too much. But we've got a parentheses here in Ham's genealogy, and I think that it's supposed to be connecting us to the Tower of Babel.
Okay.
And so we have Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before Yahweh. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel. That's connecting us to chapter 11, right? Eric, which is the Babylonian Uruk.
Right.
Akkad, which is another kingdom
This is
in that area.
Land of Uruk.
Well, it's and Kalne in the land of Shinar. So this is the land of Shinar, which is connecting us to chapter 11. Most scholars think that that's probably another pronunciation for Sumer. So the Sumerian area.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to go back to the map, Wayne, they put Nimrod here to locate him. Over here between the Tigris River is this one on top, the one on the north, and then the Euphrates is the one down on the south. And Sumer is going to be this area, right?
Yeah.
So that's the beginning of his kingdom. The word is could be translated as the starting point, right? And then he goes up from there. He goes up into Assyria, and we read about Nineveh. We know about Nineveh, Rehoboth which is just Rehoboth city, or it's just the name for city. Kala and Rezin, not really sure where those precise locations are, but if we're talking about Assyria up into Nineveh, we're talking about this whole area from the Persian Gulf all the way up here. It's basically all of Mesopotamia. So he's got a big kingdom, and that's Nimrod.
Big, nice, fertile.
Area. Yeah, I mean, along the river. I mean, this is the Fertile Crescent. This is like the cradle of humanity, is what it is. And he's got this big kingdom. There's a lot of questions about how are we supposed to view this guy. It says that he was the first on earth to be a mighty man, Gibora. We see that all throughout the Old Testament. Interesting. That ties us back to Genesis 6, because the Nephilim were the Gibora. They were the mighty men of old, right? So already there's a connection that's not positive.
Right.
There is an interesting, this idea he was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. There's a question about how are we supposed to view that? Is that positive? Is it negative? I think the key is that the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Like that's supposed to tie us to chapter 11. We're supposed to get to Tower of Babel and be like, oh, I know, I remember Nimrod. That was the beginning of his kingdom. There's a lot of grammatical stuff that keys us into this. I don't know how far you want to get into I don't know how far down the rabbit hole you want to go, Jay. So grammatically, when it says he was the first on earth to be a mighty man, the word first has a wide range of meaning in Hebrew. It could mean to be or began, or it could mean to be profane. And then the next to be. So if you're using the ESV, he was the first on earth to be a mighty man. That word that's translated to be is a word that with the specific prefix that it has in Hebrew actually carries the connotation of in order to be. So one of the articles I read translated it as he made himself profane in order to be a mighty man. So if you tie that into his kingdom was Babel, Uruk, Akkad, in the land of Shinar, that word that's translated Kalne could actually be all of them. So all of these cities are in the land of Shinar. And then he goes into Assyria and Nineveh, and he's spreading out. The word for hunter could also be translated as slaughterer. So he's a slaughterer before Yahweh. So he's a tyrant. He's not, this isn't a good guy. This is a guy who actually is like the first emperor.
Yeah, he's a kingdom builder by force.
Right, yeah.
The way that in Habakkuk, the Ninevites are described.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like their founder.
Yeah. Micah chapter 5 says the land of Nimrod, and it's talking about Assyria. He's not, this isn't a good guy. He's wicked. And that's how he is considered in Jewish writings. So Josephus writes about him. Philo writes about him. And they both talk about him as an evil guy who is the architect of the Tower of Babel.
Right.
So that's how I think we're supposed to see him. We're supposed to see him as an evil kingdom builder who is defiantly going against God.
Yeah, there's also this interesting thread that the cities he founds and the nations which emerge as we progress, they're going to become powerful nations. The Babylonians,
they're the bad guys,
and the Assyrians, and these cities, they carry that theme of like man's rebellion against God and evil, and like we're talking real evil here.
Yeah.
The atrocious things that they do on the earth, that's carried like through the whole Bible.
Oh yeah, there's debate over whether Babel is to be synonymous with the city of Babylon. They're in the same area, maybe not the same place, but they're in the same area. But this is the kingdom that starts in Genesis 10, and we see this stretch all the way into Revelation 18 with Babylon the Great, right? The greats, it becomes synonymous with the great city in rebellion against God. This is the city of man coming to its conclusion. Like it starts with Cain, and he builds his own little city, but now Nimrod, who is through a long line, he's going to be related to Cain through Adam, but here's the guy who takes it to the exponential degree, and he doesn't just want a city; he wants an entire kingdom,
right?
And he's going to unite humanity on the plains of Shinar or Sumer to build a tower in defiance of God.
Yeah.
He's a wicked guy.
Yeah.
Now the question is, who is he?
Yeah.
And that's where things get really interesting. Who is this guy? All right, he's an evil tyrant king, but who is he? There's debate over whether Nimrod is probably not his name. Nimrod means rebel, or we rebel, so it probably is just tying him to Tower of Babel,
right?
And
which is interesting to think about, right? Rebel against who?
Right.
Well, Noah's his grandpa. I'm sure, like, he passed down the truth of the one true God, and and who is to be worshipped and served.
Yeah.
And then his grandson becomes
right.
We rebel.
Yeah.
Against God.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and where's he getting that from? He's getting it from his wicked ancestor Ham, right? I mean, this is the seed of the serpent, and you see that in the line of Ham. I mean, the rogues gallery of Old Testament villains are all coming from Ham. Egypt, the Canaanites. I mean, we're even talking about Sodom and Gomorrah here in chapter 10. I mean, we're really anticipating later stories in the Old Testament. But the question is this an individual, or is he kind of a mashup of a bunch of different kings? I think the majority opinion is that he is King Sargon the First of Akkad.
Okay.
The Akkadian Empire. Things that so King Sargon and even Akkad are not known from writings during King Sargon's time. It's all stuff that's written later on in Assyrian that's looking back and talking about him. They've never found Akkad. Like, we don't know where it is. It hasn't been discovered. But the things that are known about King Sargon seem to line up with what we know about Nimrod. And there's articles, multiple articles that have been written about this, looking into. One I read was conservative and was taking the Bible at face value. Another one was more liberal and saying that the Nimrod parentheses here in chapter 10 is actually a later writing that's actually looking at the rise of the Assyrian Empire and using Nimrod as King Sargon to talk about the Assyrian Empire in the past. It's like a polemic against the Assyrian Empire. So they're coming from a more conservative, a more liberal standpoint, but they're both coming to the same conclusion that it was King Sargon. Another is there was actually several that I found that had been thrown out there. One was an early pharaoh, but it doesn't line up with where Nimrod is.
Yeah.
But then the one that's the most fun to think about is that Nimrod is actually Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
And that's interesting.
Yeah.
Gilgamesh. Did you read the Epic of Gilgamesh in high school? Were you supposed to read the Epic of Gilgamesh? Maybe I should ask you that. Were you supposed to read it in high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I've read portions of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I went back and read it last week just to get back, kind of seeing what was going on. Gilgamesh is, even though the Epic of Gilgamesh is more fantastical, he is considered by many scholars to have been a real person. That may not have been his real name. I can't remember what Gilgamesh means. It means something like hero, a renowned hero or something like that. So it may not have been his actual name, but he's actually listed in the Sumerian kings list. He's the 5th king of the first dynasty of the Sumerian Empire. He obviously has to have been, if the Sumerian king list is historical, it's accurate, and he's actually a real person, he had to have been someone who was pretty prominent if this long epic that stretches from Sumerian to Babylonian to Assyrian throughout, centuries of time. He had to have been someone who there's a long memory of him. In the epic, he's 16 and a half feet tall, so he's a giant, which is what the Septuagint calls Nimrod. Instead of a mighty man, it says he's a giant. He's a tyrant. When the epic starts, he's a tyrant who has built up the city of Uruk, which is one of Nimrod's cities, and he acts like the sons of God in Genesis 6. He takes any woman that he wants. I think the epic says something like he didn't leave a virgin in the region. He oppresses the people. He oppresses them so much that the people cry out to their gods to take care of him, and the gods, they do Babylonian god shenanigans to deal with him. He actually goes on a quest and meets the Babylonian Noah, Ufna-Tishim, I think, or something like that. And he talks to the Babylonian Noah, trying to figure out the secret to immortality. This Noahic figure tells him about this plant that will renew his youth. He finds the plant, he takes it with him, and a snake comes along and steals it. So it's like there's interesting connections with the book of Genesis, almost as if there's like this collective memory of the true story.
Right.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
And he wants revenge on God for destroying the earth.
I read an article that went that angle, but reading the epic, I didn't get that.
Huh.
I didn't see that as clearly as this other guy did. So I don't know. But Josephus, later Philo, they write about Nimrod. They talk about him as a giant. Talk about him building the Tower of Babel, and Josephus goes into detail and says that Nimrod's reason was he hates God. And he wants to build a tower that's so tall that if God decides to flood the earth again, that it won't be able to reach the top of the tower. And that he wants to be avenged on God for killing his forefathers. Well, who are his forefathers?
Yeah.
Genesis 6.
Yeah.
Genesis 6 people, right? Yeah. So even if Josephus is embellishing, which I mean he's living millennia later, there is at least a tradition in Jewish thought of Nimrod being this wicked rebel who is the chief architect of the Tower of Babel, and he's rebelling against God.
Yeah. But your main point here is to emphasize, look, that spirit of Nimrod, that lives in all people.
Mm-hmm.
That this fallen nature prone to rebellion against God and to build your own kingdom and to be selfish, live for yourself, build your own fame in the world. And we see that in the nations. Like it's frustrating to read articles that talk about the resources on the earth.
Yeah.
Like that we have enough resources on the earth where like every human alive right now could live in prosperity without any need of food or water.
Right.
There's enough. More than enough, way more than enough, which it's crazy to think about.
Oh, yeah.
But why not? Why can't we?
The reason why humanitarian aid is not making a difference in Africa is because of all the warlords who are taking it.
Taking all the money.
Yeah.
You donate all this money. It doesn't ever
that's
get
why
to the people.
that's why America just throwing money at stuff isn't going to work as long as there's like warlords that are, oh, thanks.
Right.
Thanks for the money and the guns.
Yes. And same problem. Yeah. Like why are we at perpetual animosity between us and the Russians?
Yeah.
These two big superpowers that really ultimately aren't concerned with the world, but preserving their own kingdoms.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like what Philo says. He says that because of who Nimrod was, he says, on which account it has become a proverb that everyone who sins greatly ought to be referred to him as the original and chief of sinners, being spoken of as, quote, a second Nimrod. And I thought that was really insightful.
Yeah.
Because that's we may not have a kingdom like Nimrod had that reaches across this wide area, but we're all trying to build our own kingdom wherever we are. We're all I talked about it as we're like little black holes.
Yeah.
Like we're just sucking everything in for ourselves.
Yeah.
Not concerned with other people. We're just concerned with what we can get out of other people. And everything's about us. We look in the mirror every morning and we see we're the main character. And that's Nimrod. And apart from God's grace, we all will be like Nimrod, who are in rebellion against God, and we're just building up our kingdom, and we'll be avenged if God does anything bad against us. We'll have enough money, we'll have enough influence, enough friends, enough health to be able to withstand the judgment. And we see that Nimrod we don't even know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Like he's this massive historical figure that we can't even figure out who he actually was, because for all of his power and might and empire and probably wealth and women and whatever else he had, it's just been swept into, the abyss of human history.
Yeah.
And that will be anyone who tries to build their own kingdom.
Yes.
They'll all end up like Nimrod.
All right, good. So, all right, now the third truth. All God's promises will culminate in the seed of the woman. There's another parenthesis, though. It's smaller, verse 25, and it centers on Eber.
Yeah. Yep. And we already talked about a little bit about Eber. He's he's probably where the word Hebrew comes from.
Mhm.
There's debate over exactly what that word means. Could be someone who passes over or passes through. Well, that fits with the Hebrew people, or it could be from a word that is talking about a class of people who don't have a like a set place in society, which also could
Yeah.
match with the Hebrew people. Right. All we know is that from Eber, we trace the line from Peleg down to Abram, and in Genesis chapter 14, he's called Abram the Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it just traces its way back.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have this parentheses that to Eber were born two sons. The kind of the context makes you think that they're twins, but I don't know. That's not given. But the name of the one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. So there's your little parentheses, and there's debate over what that word means. So he's named Peleg because in his days the earth was divided. Divided is the word that sounds like Peleg. What does that mean? And there's different theories that have been thrown out there. The weirdest one, the one that I'm like, this is a weird one. That why would you even consider this? Is that it's the same word for streams or canals. So in Psalm 1, verse 3, he will be like a tree planted by Peleg. And so the theory is that, well, in his day there was like some kind of innovation with like irrigation. Like, well, that doesn't seem like something that's noteworthy,
Right.
or why you name your kid this. The second is maybe a little more likely, is that it's dealing with the division between Peleg and his brother Joktan. So Joktan's genealogy is given here in chapter 10. Peleg's just mentioned with that little brief note about his name, but then Joktan's genealogy is given. But then in chapter 11, we're going to pick up Peleg's genealogy because he's the chosen line through which the seed of the woman will come. So maybe division could be another word for Moses's doctrine of election. So in his day, the earth was divided between Joktan and Peleg. So God is going to single out one line from the nations. And so Abram is divided from the nations.
Yeah.
Could be. Maybe. Obviously, that's true, but maybe that's not what's going on here. The more likely is that the earth is divided at the Tower of Babel. That's more likely. It's not the same word that's used over in chapter 11 for the dispersion, but it carries the same idea.
Right.
And in the context, it seems to be the most likely.
Okay.
So what we've got is Nimrod is pointing to the Tower of Babel. Peleg is also pointing to the Tower of Babel, but in two different ways.
Yeah.
Nimrod is pointing because of rebellion. Peleg is pointing to it as promise. And that's what we've been tracing in Genesis, all the way from 3:15, that the seed of the woman is going to come. Trace that through Seth to Noah, Noah's three sons. Now we're going to have the Tower of Babel incident, but then we're going to pick up another genealogy. So we get two genealogies this round, Jay.
Yeah.
And we're going to trace Peleg down to Abram, and from him, that's the seed of the woman is going to come from Abram, and his offspring is going to bless the nations.
Yeah.
Right. So we're reminded of the promise back in chapter 9 where Noah curses Ham or Canaan, and then he blesses Shem and Japheth as he's related to Shem. And going back to chapter 9, we're not just thinking about the individuals. We're not just thinking about the person Canaan, the person Shem, the person Japheth. We're thinking about their offspring. It's looking forward to the conquest, but then through to the seed of the woman, who's going to come, and he's going to bring blessings to the offspring of Japheth. The farthest reaches of the earth are going to be blessed through him. That's what all of this is about. I mean, as we're looking at chapter 10, we are still anticipating the Messiah who's going to come. And this is such an overlooked chapter. No one is spending a lot of time on these genealogies, but they're all just leading us just inexplicably. That's just continuing like a stream that is leading us to Jesus. That's what it's all about. And so all of the promises, and chapter 10 should remind us of this promise that the Messiah is going to come. In spite of Nimrod's rebellion, in spite of the Tower of Babel, in spite of the fact that the nations are going to be scattered across the face of the earth and they're going to have different cultures and languages, he's still coming. The Messiah is still coming. God is not going to be thwarted by man's sin, but Jesus is going to come. God is going to fulfill all of his promises.
Right. Yeah.
And that should give us hope.
Yeah.
As we're reading about the nations and we see how, we're still divided.
Right.
God is still going to keep all his promises.
Yeah.
And Christ is going to, he's going to redeem his people.
Right. Yeah. It is always good. It's good for us to I think, meditate on like how much the Bible is centered around this, the unfolding of this promise. Like, why are these people in the Bible mentioned? We should always be asking that question. And you'll see, like, there's always a link, like in this chain.
Yeah.
Linking. Like, why is Esther in the Bible?
Right.
Or why is that such a big story? Like, the promise came that close to being snuffed out.
Yeah.
But God, in his providence and his working through unlikely characters, preserves that promise.
Right.
And it continues to unfold. And I just think that's really what's remarkable. I don't think most people really have any idea about how the Bible is put together like that.
There's an interesting verse in Deuteronomy 32 that commentaries were pointing me to, and I was, all right, what's going on here? In Deuteronomy 32, verses 8 and 9, Moses, this is the Song of Moses. He's writing this song for Israel's remembrance. He says, when the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. But Yahweh's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted heritage. And it seems that Moses is going back to Genesis chapter 10. It's same author. So he fixes the borders of the nations. How many nations are listed here in Genesis 10? It's 70.
Yeah.
When you get to Genesis 46, we read about Jacob's descendants going to Egypt. How many are there? There's 70.
Yeah.
So it seems like he's pointing to the fact that providentially, all the nations are where they are. All the borders are where they are for Israel.
Right.
And why? It's because through Israel is going to come the Messiah. So it's not haphazard. It's all God's sovereignty. All of his providence is leading to this point.
And it is interesting to think about the land would be the center, like the center of the earth.
Yeah.
So from the beginning, his desire was for that people to be a light to the Gentiles.
Even from a secular viewpoint, the land of Canaan was the center of all the action. It was such a desired location that even under the Greeks, when the Greek Empire split, they're just constantly fighting in that area.
All of Asia, all of Europe, all of Africa.
Yeah.
And I mean, now we've, traversed the earth.
Right.
But put a pin in that spot. It's the center of the world.
Yeah. It's like this bullseye on Israel, and everything is.
And then when Christ comes, it's the perfect spot for the gospel to disperse, to spread easily through numerous continents,
right,
without hindrance,
right,
yeah.
Which leads us to the final point, the final truth, right.
And let me pull back my notes up, see how you worded it. All of God's purposes are for the salvation of the nations,
right.
Yeah.
The story centers on Israel, but it's not, God's not showing grace to Israel so that they can feel ethnically superior to everyone else.
Right.
God doesn't bless Israel so that Israel becomes that black hole and pulls it all in and hoards it. Israel exists for the nations, that they are meant to receive God's grace in order to spread God's grace.
Yeah.
They don't exist for their own kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, God's not setting up. He's not like, well, Nimrod did it, but he was a bad guy. Here's, I'll give Israel.
Give them a shot.
I'll give them a shot. Yeah.
Right.
Their purpose is so that the nations will be blessed. And that leads us to Genesis 12, verse 3, that when God calls Abram, he says that in you, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. Again, we're supposed to read 10, 11, 12 back to back. Hold it together.
Right.
The nations that have been scattered because of their rebellion, God's going to do something through Abram and his offspring that's going to bring blessings to the nations. And Paul in Galatians says that seed, that offspring, is singular.
Yeah.
And he's referring to Christ.
Right.
That the nations are going to be blessed through the singular seed of Abraham, who is the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we see happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I have so many, I was like, there's no way I can get to all these verses, all these passages in Psalms, in especially Isaiah, because you go through the servant songs of Isaiah, it's constantly talking about the salvation that's going to come to the nations. That God is sending his servant, who he calls Israel, to redeem Israel. So you've got a distinction. There's the seed, who is Israel, who's going to bring Israel. But then God says, it's too light a thing for you just to redeem Israel. I'm going to make you a light to the nations. And he talks about the coastlands, which is Japheth. That's the furthest reaches of the earth are the coastlands. The Messiah has come for the nations. And then Paul picks that up in Acts chapter 13. He quotes it about him and says, God has sent us out to be a light to the nations. You've got Romans chapter 1 that talks about it's the power of God for salvation to the Jew first, and then to the ta ethne, the nations.
Right.
And that's the role of the Messiah and his people in the gospel. They're supposed to go out.
Yeah. And there's that very kind of like, I don't want to say scandalous, but shocking. Is it in Isaiah 61 where the Gentiles become priests?
Yeah. I'll make you priest.
Yeah.
They become part of Israel.
Yeah.
Like, there's not two people. They come in. And the mystery is that they come in not through circumcision and law keeping. They come in through the Messiah. They come in as they believe on the Messiah, who's true Israel, and they join to him. Right.
Which also brings out in Jesus' genealogy those Gentiles, which gives them a little more emphasis.
Right. Yeah.
On that scandalous genealogy, which, by the way, David had as well.
Yeah, that's right.
It is interesting.
So there was an interesting passage that I took people to, and I had people coming up to me all day yesterday, and I'm like, I've never seen that connection before. I've never seen that before. In Luke chapter 10, Jesus sends out, depending on the translation you use, the ESV says he sends out the 72. And I think that's another one of those passages that we're just like, okay, he sent out 72, and we're just like, well, why 72? Well, that's just what he did. But if you pay close attention, your Bible probably has a footnote that says some manuscripts say 70.
Right.
You have to ask yourself why. Why is there a textual variant there? And I think the reason is that the scribes who are, copying Luke's gospel, they know what's going on here. There's 70 nations listed in Genesis 10. If you go to the Septuagint, the Greek translation, which I think Luke is using, there's 72 that are listed. I don't know why. I didn't chase that trail. But there's an extra name in Japheth's line, and there's an extra name in Shem's line. The reason I think Luke is using the Septuagint is because if you go to his genealogy of Jesus in Luke 3, the extra name is there, Kynan. He's slipped in there. Aparkshad fathered Kynan, and Shelah, I believe, is so that's the line. What is going on with Jesus sending out the 72 or the 70 is pointing back to Genesis 10. He's sending them out as kind of a foretaste that the gospel is not just for Israel, it's for the nations.
Right.
And so 70 is not it's a number of completeness.
Yeah.
It's a representative number for all the nations. The gospel is going to go out to all the nations. And that's what Jesus tells his disciples to do in Matthew 28. Go and make disciples of all the ta ethne,
right?
All the nations, all the ethnicities. And then, the hope that we have is found in Revelation chapter 7, where John sees a vision of all the nations.
Right.
Like there's representatives of all the nations surrounding the throne.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate purpose. Not just that a small pocket of people are reconciled to God. It's that the message goes out to the nations, and people from all over the world are going to believe on the Messiah, and they're going to be reconciled to God, and we're going to stand around the throne worshiping the Lamb forever and ever together as different ethnicities. And that's hope. That's hope for us.
Right.
But it also should spur us on. Like if Jesus in the Great Commission meant go to all the nation states as we understand them with their borders and their governments, then the Great Commission has been fulfilled because there's churches in every nation.
Yeah,
but
including Antarctica.
Yeah, but if he means the people groups, the ethnicities, then there's still a lot of work left to be done.
Yeah.
The gospel hasn't reached all the ta ethne.
Right.
And so that should spur us on to spreading the gospel.
Right.
I love living in Lawton. This is such a unique place because the ta ethne have come here because of Fort Sill.
Right. We
have people from all these different nations. You don't have to even hop on an airplane to do a mission trip. If you live in Lawton, you just talk to someone who's from a different nation. Right. I hope that it was an encouragement to our church to be evangelizing.
Right. Yeah, and we even have different ethnic churches here.
Oh, yeah.
Is one of your neighbors still a pastor at one of those churches?
Yeah. Yep.
Is it a Korean church?
Korean church.
Yeah.
Well, it's called All Nations.
Yeah.
All Nations.
Hey.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's right. Yeah.
That's good.
But I think he preaches in Korean, so it's
yeah.
But yeah. I mean, throughout your day, you're going to bump into people from different nations. What are we going to do about that?
Yeah. I remember once I went in to buy an Easter tie, and I had interaction with a guy who was he was Hindu, and he was playing Christian music. And I was like, why are you playing Christian music? Well, it's obviously because he's a smart businessman. I could be playing his Hindu music to make all of us feel comfortable as we're buying our Easter ties. So I had, able to have an interaction with him, share the gospel with him.
Right.
Of course, he was banking on incarnation, very, very, very odd.
Right. Yeah.
But they're here. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't have to hop on a plane and fly across the world.
And I also, our church has a unique opportunity to minister to soldiers who are here just for a short time, and then they're going to go out to different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And that's also opportunity for us to reach the nations.
Yeah.
As we're ministering to people who are at Fort Sill, who are then going to go to Germany or to Korea or, all around the world. And who knows who will be impacted.
Middle East.
Yeah. If we will. So I pray that we'll be a faithful church that has a heart for the nations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they do. I mean, I think we already do. And one of our church members, he's moved on. His job took him another place, but he was spending time with, because, how the military works. He had a person that was here being trained from another country, a Muslim country, and was able to spend time talking with a Muslim person about Christ.
Right.
And just opportunities. You just have to be aware, like they're there. Like, God's giving them to you. Just have your eyes open.
Yeah. But, people who are native to Oklahoma, they need the gospel too.
Yeah.
And they're part of the nations also.
Rednecks need the gospel too,
Rednecks
George.
need the gospel. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do they call them there in Arkansas? Are they rednecks or what are they? Hillbillies? Hillbillies and rednecks.
They need the gospel
They need
too.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
We're at the intersection of the ethne. We got hillbillies, rednecks, and what are they, cowboys. We got them all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those aren't mentioned here, but
Yeah.
we'll assume that they fall under the 70 representative.
They have their cultural
nation.
differences.
That's right.
Yeah. So it was a good sermon. I'm looking forward to getting into chapter 11.
Yeah, me too. I was working on it this morning, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in Tower of Babel.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, thanks, George. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to getting into that. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in today. Hope this has been a blessing to you. I know if you've been hanging in there with us, I'm sure you've learned things you've never known in your whole life. But the goal is not to just give you more knowledge so that you can build up your head. It's to give you a passion for the gospel, that you would love Christ more and be built up as a Christian, be equipped to take the gospel into the world which we live. So hopefully it's done that. If it has, please share the podcast with your friends and family. It's our hope and desire that what we do here, though it's for our church primarily, would be a benefit to you as well. And if it is, then praise God for that. And hope you come back next week. We'll see you then.